we're discussing the role disinformation and misinformation have in the 2024 election and the organizations working to fight it, like the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Joining us now is its president and CEO, Maya Wiley. Maya, thank you so much for joining us. And what issues are we seeing the most disinformation or misinformation about online?
Well, look, we're seeing a ton of disinformation, meaning intentionally infecting, generating an infection point, a virus in our thinking about how our elections are going to go, meaning who's voting and whether they have a right to vote. And this is what we know. Voters are going to decide who leads us in this next election. But there are a lot of actors from foreign governments to extremist groups that are simply not telling the truth about who is actually showing up to vote and who will decide this, which is U.S. citizens. And that's been really dangerous because, as you've been noting in the coverage of this, really the issue is we have a lot of folks that want Americans not to trust and believe in our system. And that's really devastating, but it is social media platforms that have had every ability to reduce exactly this kind of infection, exactly this kind of poison that's being injected directly into our conversations about what our elections are and who we want to choose to lead us. And that is unfortunate because it is putting people in danger, particularly immigrants who, if they're citizens, have every right to vote. And showing up the polls just because you speak a foreign language does not mean you should be subject to anyone threatening you.
Have you observed that any communities in particular are being targeted more by this?
Well, you know, we sadly have a history with disinformation targeting communities of color in particular. That's Black, that's Latino, that's Asian American, that's Native American. A lot of times it's to try to reduce the power and voice of those voters to vote by lying about where you vote and how you vote. For example, if someone's sending you a text about texting your vote in, that's a lie. We don't vote by text. That's not a way to vote. Or if they tell you whether you can or cannot vote by text, that is not the government communicating with you. We have seen that cycle over cycle, and a lot of the education we and others have been doing in this cycle. But I mean, I think in addition, it really is the way in which it has incited ordinary folks to believe lies that have led them to show up and try to question other voters or ask them for identification, just vigilante activity they believe is lawful or justified, which actually has, in instances, made it scary for people to vote. So what we're doing is making sure that the social media companies, we've been raising the alarm bells for a very long time, that you have the absolute ability to have policies and practices that ensure that folks are getting facts or understanding if they're consuming something that has information counter to what's being shared. That would reduce these incidents. And we cannot say enough how little support and activity we've been seeing from social media companies to do the right thing. We're going to continue to raise this alarm bell until they do.
You mentioned social media companies. Of course, your organization has called them out for spreading false information, in particular X, formerly known as Twitter. How does that site differ from the rest?
Look, you know, Elon Musk, who owns Twitter, when he came into ownership, did something that gave a lot of other social media companies also cover, which is change the policies to make it easier for disinformation to be permissible and to go unchecked. But he's also the person with the largest number of followers on Twitter. So as a result, he has become the primary purveyor, the carrier of this disease we call disinformation, by emojiing it with a thumbs up or any other kind of thing that gives it the imprimatur that it is something that is trustworthy and should believe, but also that gives it many more eyeballs.
Maya Wiley, we thank you so much for your time.